Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am super excited you're joining me today because we are going on a totally fascinating journey. We're literally going to pull back the curtain on one of the wildest, most incredible stories of the Cold War. We're looking at the highly classified origins of a technology that I guarantee you use multiple times a day. We're going to see exactly how high-stakes espionage and a completely secret space program pave the way for modern consumer tech.
All right, let's just jump right in with a pretty profound question. You know that smartphone sitting right there in your pocket? Where did its digital camera actually come from? I mean, we completely take for granted that we can snap a super high-resolution photo and share it with the world in half a second. But the foundation of that capability, it didn't start in some Silicon Valley garage. It actually started in the darkest, most secretive corridors of government intelligence. So, to really get to the bottom of this, we've got to rewind a bit to the mid-20th century. While the entire world was absolutely captivated by the very public space race, the astronauts, the Apollo missions, the monumental goal of putting a human on the moon, there was a parallel, highly classified space race happening at the exact same time. And the goal of this shadow race wasn't exploration. It was observation. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a frantic, high-stakes contest to build the ultimate camera in space specifically to spy on each other from orbit. The starting gun for this whole secret operation, October 1957. That's when the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1, proving to the world that orbital flight was actually possible. Now, while the public was marveling at this amazing scientific achievement, military and intelligence leaders saw something else, a terrifying new vulnerability. Suddenly, the biggest nightmare wasn't just how a nuclear weapon might be delivered, it was the fact that a satellite could potentially carry a camera right over your most top-secret facilities. The U.S. intelligence community realized, almost overnight, they urgently needed their own eyes in the sky. Okay, to truly grasp the brute force reality of early satellite photography, you have to picture how it actually worked. This was the era of Project Corona, which was America's first satellite reconnaissance system. Because digital transmission just wasn't a thing yet, these satellites used physical analog film. Once the film was exposed in orbit, the satellite would literally eject a capsule containing the negatives back into the Earth's atmosphere. I want you to imagine this. A military C-119 aircraft flying over the Pacific Ocean, physically snatching a falling parachute with a film canister right out of the sky mid-air. It was an incredibly risky, massive logistical feat. And the craziest part? This wasn't a one-off stunt. The sheer scale of this physical operation was massive. Between 1959 and 1972, there were 145 final Corona missions launched. Just think about the incredible, mind-bending engineering required not only to launch a camera into space, but to reliably drop canisters of exposed film back to Earth and then successfully catch them with an airplane over 100 times. Now, despite how incredibly clunky and analog dropping film from space sounds to us today, it was highly effective. Get this. The very first successful Corona mission in 1960 brought back more photographic coverage of the Soviet Union than all the previous U-2 spy plane flights combined. The impact on intelligence was just staggering. It definitively resolved the highly debated missile gap. See, before Corona, estimates predicted the Soviets would have up to 200 intercontinental ballistic missiles by 1961. But after analyzing that film, that estimate was drastically revised down to just 10 to 25. It fundamentally shifted the entire geopolitical landscape. But, as the Cold War intensified, a pretty glaring weakness started to emerge. In the middle of a tense nuclear standoff, the intelligence community hit a critical bottleneck. They simply couldn't afford to wait days for a satellite to finish its film roll, eject a capsule, hope a plane catches it, and then physically transport and develop those negatives. They desperately needed near real-time intelligence. And this totally highlights the massive operational shift the military had to make. They were stuck using systems that relied on those physical film capsules dropping from the sky, which meant actionable intelligence was always days away at best. They desperately needed to bypass all that, to capture an image, turn it directly into a signal, and beam it down instantly. They needed a complete jump to electro-optical imaging. So let's fast forward a bit to 1976 and see how this actually plays out. That year, the United States launched an absolute technological marvel as part of the Keyhole spy satellite program, the KH-11 Kennan. This was America's very first spy satellite to completely ditch physical film and embrace electro-optical digital imaging. Instead of film canisters falling from the sky, The KH-11 was designed from the ground up to transmit imagery digitally, offering the ultimate holy grail of reconnaissance, near real-time optical observations directly from space. Now, the absolute hero of this digital leap, the very beating heart of the KH-11's capabilities, was something called a charge-coupled device, or CCD for short. Invented back in 1969 at Bell Labs, the CCD is a solid-state device that directly converts light into electric signals. You can kind of think of it like a massive mosaic of tiny square picture elements, what we know today as pixels. Each individual pixel measures the intensity of the light hitting it, completely bypassing the need for any chemical film whatsoever. So why exactly was the CCD such a massive game changer for espionage? It really comes down to efficiency. These early CCD sensors were incredibly powerful compared to old-school film. In fact, they achieved a signal-to-noise ratio that was roughly 70 times higher than traditional photographic film. 70 times! This meant they could produce significantly better images in low-light situations, like, say, peering into the deep shadows of Soviet facilities, or snapping clear pictures during those harsh, dark northern winters. By strapping these highly sensitive CCDs onto the KH-11 cannon, they fundamentally changed the spy game forever. It completely bypassed the finite supply of physical film, meaning the satellite could stay up there and operate for way longer. Plus, it securely transmitted this digital imagery through a network called the Satellite Data System. From orbit, the digital data streamed right down to a highly classified facility in Virginia dubbed Area 58, allowing analysts to examine Soviet territory in a matter of hours, if not minutes. But here is where the story gets really relevant to you and me. Obviously, this electro-optical technology was highly classified, right? We're talking billions of dollars poured into its secret development. But a breakthrough this monumental just couldn't stay locked away in government vaults forever. The underlying science inevitably cascaded into the civilian world, triggering a massive, unstoppable technological spillover. We can actually trace a direct step-by-step line from those top-secret military needs straight to your modern devices. Just a few years after Bell Labs invented the CCD in 1969, a company called Fairchild Imaging produced the very first commercial CCD chip in 1973. Now, it was a modest 100 by 100 pixels, just 0.01 megapixels. But only 2 years later, an Eastman Kodak engineer named Steve Sasson took that Fairchild CCD and did something historic. He patented the very first digital camera prototype. Let's take a quick look at Sasson's 1975 invention, because this prototype was a far cry from the sleek tech we carry around today. Built with that Fairchild CCD and a spare Kodak movie camera lens, this beast weighed nearly 9 pounds and was literally about the size of a toaster. It captured extremely low-resolution monochrome images, and honestly, this is the craziest part, it took a staggering 23 seconds just to write one single fuzzy image onto a digital cassette tape. But man, from that toaster-sized prototype, the technological evolution just exploded. Right around the same time the KH-11 spy satellite launched in 1976, Bryce Bayer invented the color filter array, finally allowing digital sensors to process color. By 1991, Kodak was selling professional digital cameras for a cool $20,000. By 1999, we saw the first digital SLRs and the very first camera phones hit the scene. And of course, by 2007, devices like the iPhone had finally brought high-quality, instant digital imaging directly to the mainstream public. When you look back at the billions of dollars and decades of frantic, secret development poured into this parallel space race, the impact is just immeasurable. Even President Lyndon B. Johnson recognized this early on, stating that the knowledge gained from space photography alone was worth 10 times what the entire space program cost. Mastering digital imaging from orbit was a priceless strategic victory for national security, and, as it turns out, an incredible unintended gift to global consumer technology. So the next time you pull out your phone, whether you're pointing it at a beautiful sunset or just taking a quick selfie, I want you to remember those C-119 planes catching film mid-air over the Pacific, and the massive KH-11 keyhole satellites silently beaming digital pixels across the globe. Ask yourself, what other top-secret origins and billion-dollar classified mysteries are sitting right there in your pocket, quietly powering your everyday life? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.